Okay, here we are with Cold War to the War on Terror, the Modern World course. We'll be starting Unit 3, Africa. Let's jump over this. So just to start here, a pretty good map of Africa and the different regions. Again, just like previous units, it would be impossible to cover every one of these countries, so we'll be picking out ones from different regions to focus on in the post-World War II up to modern era. So let's begin here with section 1. Say goodbye to everyone. So again, we usually start these units off with a little background. So section 1 is going to deal with imperialism and its impact on the continent of Africa. So again, just a little bit of review. A nice textbook definition of imperialism. The policy of extending the rule or authority of an empire or nation to a foreign country, usually to acquire colonies and make them dependent on the mother country for a financial reason. And so we'll keep that in the back of mind. The age of imperialism, the original one, 1500 era. This is more of the late 1800s, and with the focus on Africa, of course. So what had happened is, in order to cut down on conflict, in Germany, there was a conference, obviously called the Berlin Conference in 1884, 1885, where 14 European countries and the United States came together to discuss the control of Africa's resources. And the goal, obviously, is to carve up Africa and to cut down on conflict, military conflict between these powers, and kind of bumping into each other all over Africa. And the partition of Africa, dividing it up so the resources could be shared. And the last line there, of course, is the key: at the expense of the African people. Notably missing from the Berlin Conference was any type of leadership from any of the African nations or people. They were not to be included in the carving up of their own continent. And if you get a chance here, there is a nice animated map of imperialism, and a little video down here in the corner that you can watch if you have the time. But if you look at this map here in 1880, you look at the French and the British having control of certain regions. The French also, and the Ottoman Empire, which will be gone after World War I. So the Berlin Conference, the colonialism, this is what it's going to look like afterwards. And again, I mentioned before, any representatives from Africa were notably missing. So you see, and again, you can look at this in detail if you'd like. You see the darker red is Great Britain and their control. Belgium Congo is going to be a key thing we'll look at. French, Spain, so you do see a variety of European powers having, interest all over Africa, and the resources in Africa is going to be the big part of this. And if you really want to delve deeper in it, it's going to relate to the industrial expansion in Europe. Also, it's going to be the raw materials are going to need to feed and keep that machine going. So historians look back at this and they're going to call it the scramble for Africa, or maybe even the partition Africa, and the critics will call it the conquest of Africa. All are apropos. So the scramble was the occupation, division, and colonization of African territory by these powers during, again, this new period of imperialism from the early 1880s up until the start of World War I in 1914. And you can see in this political cartoon here, all these European nations all pulling or tugging on their part of Africa. So we'll revisit a term we learned earlier in this course. The sphere of influence reference is no more relevant anywhere than it is in Africa. So the European powers wanted their own sphere of influence. So the European powers definitely want their sphere of influence in the continent of Africa. They wanted to make sure they weren't left out, and dividing it up and having their rights to the minerals, materials, raw materials, in that sense. Now, to tie in another term in here, the term we're going to see that's important in the post-World War II era is nationalism. And again, just reading the textbook definition, ideology based on the premise that individuals' loyalty and devotion to the nation state surpasses other individuals or group interests, meaning that, if you want to use an example in Africa, instead of maybe your tribe being important, the nation that you're living in becomes important. And nationalism obviously was all over the world. We're going to see, though, for the first big time, that the African people, they are going to get their taste of nationalism, and they want to have their own nations and not be controlled by anybody else. Okay, so that's it for section 1. We will get back with section 2 and talk more about this individual.